Pop Team Epic plus Stephen King equals a really awesome episode. My first thought while watching this week's episode of Pop Team Epic was, oh wow, another parody of The Shining. What animated series hasn't done that before? Really, I thought that they were just grasping for some low-hanging fruit. But they still managed to make a Shining parody be really funny in that anime kind of way. That and the fact that Papako and Pipimi are not really all that scary. I mean, they can be creepy in the sense that the villager from Animal Crossing is, mostly because of their deadened expressions, but a lot of that is played to great effect in this episode, which might be one of my favorite segments from the entire series, as what I love about Pop Team Epic is they're not afraid to poke fun at Western franchises and movies, and they do that a lot, and particularly the last couple episodes, we've seen a lot of that, but for them to do a parody of The Shining was good, and it was definitely, I would say if I had like the top 3 favorite animated parodies of The Shining, this would probably be the third one, only behind South Park and The Simpsons. I mean, those two are just classic the way they did it, but this episode was certainly a lot of fun. That and the fact that we are going to get a brand new dancing sensation in the form of EISAI HARAMASUKOI. It's a special dance that was created by Papako, and it actually is used in the intro of this episode. Basically, it's just the chicken dance. That's all it is, maybe with the occasional clap. That's all you got going on for this dance, and it leads to a really funny intro because the actual like music itself is not terrible in that like sort of techno-y club kind of way. But the way she sings it is just absolutely atrocious. But that leads to a lot of just really funny moments. And getting to see both versions of that in the first and second half are definitely worth checking out. They're different, they're funny, they're awesome. I love when they change things up with the intro. I honestly am surprised they don't do it more often, because this is a series that kind of likes to play with the expectations and perceptions of the viewer. And Pop Team Epic did it again this week. It was awesome, and you're going to get to see a lot more of that dance, not only multiple times, but also in a Bob Epic Team segment, when they sort of make fun of the low keyframe animation of the show. And you know what? I kind of like it the other way, because when they do it with more keyframes, the movement just looks kind of wiry and, frankly, pretty freaking scary looking. Even scarier than the actual horror segment. So let's just sort of talk about some of the other big segments from this episode. Like I said, the first one is sort of a parody on The Shining, just with some differences being that it's sort of a combination of that and the cabin in the woods style story with 4 friends going out to a snowy cabin to have some fun. And then, of course, they're confronted by ghosts that may or may not exist, which cause all of them to go insane, and basically they all end up killing themselves. It is just nuts. Not to mention the hilarious storyline of this one guy who's having an affair with 2 girls and one of his friends who goes completely insane, who sort of like starts all the killing. There's axes to the faces. There's a point where 2 people get axed and shot at the same time. There's a hilarious moment, which for me was probably the funniest moment of the episode, where one of the girls is trying to run away from the house. She gets in the car, and because it's a parody of American horror films, of course the car does not start. As soon as it does and the lights flash on, right in front of her though, are Papako and Pipimi doing nothing, just standing there, but it completely freaks her out that she just kicks it into reverse and goes over a cliff and dies in an explosion. It's so cliche, but honestly, that's kind of what makes it funny. And the second half of the episode does this segment even better, because there is this random guy in a picture-in-picture box at the bottom of the screen who's giving his commentary over the entire segment, who has the fakest mustache that I've ever seen. I don't even know what's going on here. Just some weird old Japanese dude talking about what he's seeing. And honestly, it's a great accompaniment to the first half of the episode. I highly recommend checking out both halves of the episodes just for that. The rest of the episode is basically what you would expect. A lot of classic sequence Bob Epic teams. We do have a couple of moments that do stick out in my mind that are just kind of ridiculous. There's a scene where Pipimi has just become a massive kaiju beast. She's carrying around Papako, and then you have Papako who asks, "So, how'd you become so big?" She replies simply, "Just with science." It then awkwardly just sort of ends with silence. It's moments like these that make me realize, wow, Japanese humor is just so weird. very similar to British humor in many ways. It's kind of dry, and it doesn't really have like a good clear-cut ending, and you're not quite sure if you should laugh or just feel awkward. It's these type of segments that I truly love. There's also another really great cooking segment, which made no sense, but it made me laugh, and it was a great accompaniment to the horror segment at the beginning, where we have them cooking like an omelet rice, and then they cover it with the ketchup, and then they both make a big mess of it. They get covered with all this ketchup, which scares this woman. They then start to chase her, and that's how it ends. This is a weird show to review. I don't even know what to make of the final segment of the episode, which is done in this like crayon style, and it's a dream that Papako is having about being eaten alive by a great white shark, and despite that she is being mauled to death by a shark, she seems to be really enjoying it and having a good time. I'm not even sure what this is supposed to be a reference to or what it's doing, but it's funny. So, what's the rundown on this week's episode of Pop Team Epic? Another episode that completely confounds me, but one that was a lot of fun. Like I said, the whole dance segment was great, the Shining parody was spot on, and there's a number of other little segments here, and even like a Japanese history one about a woman who hugs a tree and becomes one with it. Again, it's another one of those cultural hurdles that I'm honestly just not going to be able to get unless I do a little bit of research behind it. In many senses, that makes Pop Team Epic kind of a hard anime to recommend to people, because if you don't know much about Japanese culture, a lot of these jokes are going to absolutely fly over your head. That and that Japanese humor in and of itself is very different from American humor, but it's also very different from a ton of other different styles of comedy. I'm willing to take it for what it is. It's just sometimes just very strange and awkward, and it just sort of just... They throw a joke at you, it ends, and if it doesn't work, here comes another one in like 2 seconds. I still love the little bit at the end when they show the ending sequence and the song starts up. The singers are really angry about the fact that they're not getting any recognition. There's only 1 episode left, and I really cannot wait to see if they're going to troll us big time in the final episode. I've heard some people make theories that the final episode of Pop Team Epic is actually going to be the final episode of Hoshiro Girl Drop, the fake anime series that they use at the end of the episodes. Like, they're going to preview to that, and they might actually just do that the entire time. That would be amazing. I mean, you know, I know it might piss some people off being trolled by a series, but this is the type of show that honestly I think could pull that off and end up being really freaking funny and memorable for that. That being said, just another wacky, ridiculous, and irreverent episode of Pop Team Epic. I loved the Shining sequence. It was definitely my favorite part of this episode, but I also liked a lot of the other smaller moments. But I'd love to hear from you guys. First, my score for this episode is a 4 out of 5. I got a lot of laughter out of this one. I don't have too much to complain about. You know, there were just a few cultural things that kind of just went over my head. I didn't quite understand. That didn't take away from the episode, but it can make it kind of, you know, less enjoyable for some viewers. But again, that's just my opinion. I'd love to hear your guys. Tell me all your thoughts about this episode. What was your favorite segment? And what do you hope to see from the end of Pop Team Epic? Tell me all your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching this review. I'll see you next time. And as always, stay down, baby.